Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So we're gonna do a masterpieces video. This is a bit of a follow-up to the fragrance video I did not too long ago where I talked about 10 out of 10s, and I mentioned that in that video that I really like the idea that I got from Justin Copeland's channel and his followers about a 10 out of 10 and a masterpiece does not necessarily have to be the same thing. And I really like that concept. It actually makes a lot of sense to me. So we're gonna do the masterpiece version. These are fragrances that I do think are masterpieces, but you know what? Some of these maybe are not necessarily 10 out of 10s. I don't really feel like I need to, point that out. I just like the idea of a 10 out of 10 doesn't necessarily have to be a masterpiece. If you didn't see that video, I'll link it to the top of the screen there and also put it down below so you can go check that one out. But I mentioned that a masterpiece for me doesn't necessarily have to be a perfectly done fragrance. It can be something that was just simply impactful on the fragrance community or the fragrance business overall. It could be something that is just super popular, ridiculously popular within the community, or just popular in sales. All of these things I think can contribute to them being a masterpiece. It could be something that introduced a new style of fragrance to the world of perfumery and thus was very influential to other brands. In other words, they did their own version of it. In short, it just has something about it that maybe gives it a little bit of a leg up over simply being like a perfectly done fragrance. Because a fragrance can be a 10 out of 10 perfectly done fragrance, but maybe doesn't have a big impact on the community, or maybe it's not even necessarily that popular. And at the end of the day, I do still think it is objective. Obviously, there is no official status of something being a masterpiece. So this is still all opinion at the end of the day. But with a lot of these, you can't deny the impact or maybe just even the sales numbers they have had over the course of time of their existence. So again, we got 10 of them here today. We're gonna go ahead and get into it. But before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get it started. I'm just gonna give an honorable mention right now. I didn't put it on the list, and that's gonna be Maison Francis Kurkdjian Baccarat Rouge 540. We know the impact that fragrance has had on the fragrance business overall. Same as another one I'm gonna mention on the list. You probably know what it is. Countless clones, countless inspired by fragrances. I just chose not to put that one on the list, kind of for personal reasons. I acknowledge what that fragrance is to the fragrance business overall, but if I'm being honest, it's not, I don't dislike it. It's just kind of like, it's okay for me. It's a strong like, but I don't really consider that one like a love. So I just chose not to put it on the list, but honorable mention for that. And there's probably plenty I could have put in the honorable mention category. Just wanted to point that one out. So the first one's going to be coming from the house of Tom Ford. That's going to be Oud Wood. Tom Ford, Oud Wood. So this shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, consider the house of Tom Ford. If it's your first time hearing about the house, you're going to hear about this fragrance. If you go to a Tom Ford counter in any store that has them, or a boutique, and you say, hey, what are some of the more popular fragrances from this house, they're going to show you this one. So Tom Ford Oud Wood, impactful in the community, impactful in the business overall. Many brands have done their own version of this. Matter of fact, from the house of Thameen, I actually like their kind of take on this even better than this, but you have to give credit to the one that kind of inspired the type of scent that it is overall. So this is a very westernized wearable oud fragrance. Has really nice spice, a little bit of a cardamom kind of feel, just kind of a blend of spices as well. There is some sandalwood in here, adding a creamy woody element. The oud again is very wearable, nothing funky about this at all, just kind of a clean woody oud smell. A lot of cypriol in this, kind of contributing to that as well. A little bit of vanilla. I mean, if you know the scent, you know what it is. This fragrance here just kind of introduced me personally to the higher, what I would call just a higher quality world of perfumery, because I actually got this before I actually started collecting. I think for the test of time, this is going to remain one of their top sellers. It is just that good. You guys probably are familiar with it, so you know what this is and what it means to the community and the business overall. So from the house of Tom Ford, we have got Oud Wood. All right, next one's coming from the house of Creed. You know what it is. It's gonna be Aventus. Creed Aventus. So, I mean, this has to be considered a masterpiece. If someone disagrees, I would just be like, what are you thinking about? Even if you don't like even if you don't like the fragrance overall or don't think it's overall that great, you cannot deny the impact that this has had on the business and the community overall. Still a wildly popular fragrance DNA. People love the variations on the scent DNA. People love the clones on it. This is probably one of the most cloned, if not the most cloned fragrance in history. Actually, I guess it would be the most cloned fragrance in history, because if you consider what clones are to the business, it's a relatively new thing. Plenty of inspirations for this. If you're just by chance not familiar with it, what is it? I mean, it's a smoky, fruity pineapple fragrance, very bright, nice bergamot, very fresh. Kind of smoky and woody, a little bit sweet. It's a little bit juicy. I mean, it is a fragrance DNA that has inspired so many fragrances after it, and we're still getting new clones, which I just for the life of me don't understand. But hey, if companies can put them out and make money from it, I guess I can't really be mad at them. I think it is safe to say that the Aventus DNA is going to be a part of the fragrance world for as long as I am alive, and so forth. I mean, I just can't see an end to this in sight. So once again, from the House of Creed, this is Aventus. Moving on, next one's coming from the House of Hermes. It's gonna be Terre D'Hermes. Hermes, Terre D'Hermes, or Land of Hermes, as it would translate. And this here, now this is gonna be one of those ones that's maybe a little bit more divisive, because this fragrance is certainly not for everyone, but it is a very unique DNA that, at least now, I wasn't around when it came out in terms of like being a collector. I was still in high school at the time. I certainly was not collecting fragrances. Wasn't really into them like that either. I just kind of wore what I had at the time. But to the best of my knowledge, this is a scent DNA that, kind of took, you could say it kind of took homage from like more classical, like vetiver and citrus fragrances, but created something modern and new and unique. And boy, is it amazing. I can understand if you don't like this though. This is a very smoky, earthy vetiver fragrance featuring a very prominent orange and grapefruit kind of citrus element. Kind of been nicknamed the dirty orange fragrance. I definitely agree with that sentiment, because that is rather accurate. It is a very earthy orange flavored fragrance, definitely featuring vetiver in the kind of grassy but also woody and earthy and smoky variety. There's also some other smoky elements adding to that. Gentleman's fragrance for sure. Very classy, as you would expect from a house like Hermes. And it's a staple setter in terms of the fragrance community as well as the fragrance world. I don't know if this one has necessarily spawned a ton of clones, but there have definitely been fragrances that I think took their cue from this. They kind of used the inspiration for this and kind of made their own thing. And what I like about it is there's not a lot of stuff that really just kind of smells exactly like this out there. You could say, oh, there maybe took like a piece of this or a piece of that, but it stands on its own, and the flankers that this spawned are just as good as the original in my opinion. So once again, from the House of Hermes, this is gonna be Terre D'Hermes. All right, let's move on to one coming from Dior. This is gonna be Dior Homme Parfum. Dior Homme Parfum. So this is considered by many in the community, at least, to be like the holy grail designer fragrance. One of the best Irish fragrances ever made, and it is lovely. Man, so honestly, for me, I kind of like to say the masterpiece should be the original. In most cases, there are exceptions though, and this is definitely one of them. Now, I have Dior Homme Original when it was kind of rebranded as Dior Homme Original since the Homme 2020 came out. So I don't know the difference between that one and like the original Dior Homme release, but I would call that a masterpiece, but this is frankly just so much better overall that I kind of have to say this is the actual masterpiece, in my opinion. What is this? If you don't know, this is an Irish fragrance in that kind of powdery lipstick makeup style, and supported with a very strong leathery note, which leather and iris does go very well together, but I do think it has to be a good blend. In my opinion, sandalwood, creamy wood. Supposedly there's some oud in here. I don't really get too much of an oudy variety, but it is woody at its base. I think there's some patchouli in this as well. It does have a sweet-like element to it, but it's more so about the leather in this one. For me, I find Dior Homme tends to be a little bit more sweeter. And if you think about the influence of this fragrance, particularly on the community, there's no denying this fragrance has set its place in history, if you will, in fragrance history. You can't really call this one a trendsetter because it is the third iteration of the Dior Homme iris-based fragrance. So it's like, no, this one spawned because of the predecessors before it. So I wouldn't necessarily necessarily call it that, but it is just done so well that, you know, people that are fortunate enough to get a bottle of this in today's day and age know how good this is. So once again, from the house of Dior, we've got Dior Homme Parfum. All right, next one's coming from the house of Oud Wood. This is going to be Reflection Man. Oud Wood, Reflection Man. You guys know it well. If you're gonna, kind of similar to Oud Wood with Tom Ford, if you're introduced to the house, this is probably going to be one that is going to be mentioned to you by other people. It's probably going to be shown to you if you're at an Oud Wood counter, anywhere that has Oud Wood fragrances, and it is a good one. Cannot deny that. And definitely a huge impact on the community. Easily probably the most popular, or at least one of the most popular fragrances, if not the most popular, from the house of Oud Wood within the community. Certainly a successful scent for the house overall. This is a white floral fragrance. White floral, kind of powdery, a little bit of a soapiness to it, a little bit of a creamy element, sandalwood, some spice from pink pepper. I believe there's definitely neroli in this, but it's not like overbearing. Neroli can be a very powerful fragrance ingredient and kind of adds a little bit of a soapiness to the fragrance, but this is a balanced version of that. I think that's why it's so popular. A little bit of a bitter orange leaf in this as well, kind of an orangey flavoring. It's a lovely scent. Some sweetness too. Great for the office overall. That's kind of the main thing people like to say it's good for, but you can wear this just for everyday wear. There's no denying the popularity of this scent and the successful nature of it, and I do think it is a masterpiece, and I also think that it's done perfectly. This is also a 10 out of 10 fragrance. I said I wasn't going to mention that, but for this one, I'm going to do it. Once again, coming from Oud Wood, this is Reflection Man. All right, I didn't really want to repeat a brand, but I decided to do it anyway with this one. So another one from Oud Wood, and this is Jubilation 25. Oud Wood, Jubilation 25. Now, I don't know if everybody necessarily agrees with me that this is a masterpiece. This is maybe for me a little bit more of a personal one, which I do think I can include at least one on here that I would say is maybe more of a personal decision. But hey, let me know if you agree or disagree down below about Jubilation 25. The reason I wanted to include this one is because this is a scent DNA. I still have yet to come across anything that is like it that, you know, wasn't trying to be a clone, which I don't really dive into clones anyway, so I can't even speak to that. But just in all the fragrances I've gotten my nose on, I still have yet to say like, oh, that is Jubilation 25 inspired. This is a kind of blackberry / blueberry, fruity, incensey, resinous fragrance. A little bit of a dry, woodsy base, incense, resin, slightly smoky. It is just so well done, so well balanced, because it's complex, but it all just kind of comes together to create this one accord that is Jubilation 25. All of those things kind of typically combine to make a fragrance that you would say is, you know, not necessarily not wearable, but maybe too particular, too oriental. I think this is a fragrance that you can wear anywhere for anything. Now, granted, that's my opinion, but I would say that it is balanced in a way to where you could wear it when it's hot out, you can wear it when it's cold out, and it will do its thing. So again, this might be a personal masterpiece for me, but you know, you guys let me know down below if you agree or disagree. Curious to see what you got to say. So once again, coming from Oud Wood, this is Jubilation 25. All right, let's move on. We got one from the house of Chanel, and this is gonna be Bleu de Chanel Parfum. Bleu de Chanel Parfum. Now for me personally, I think the Parfum is the best iteration and is the actual masterpiece version of this. But to be fair, we have to just say Bleu de Chanel Eau de Toilette is the masterpiece because it spawned the two concentration-based flankers that came after it. It's all based on that DNA, and that DNA was impactful in terms of sales, impactful in terms of the community overall, impactful in terms of the business. Certainly has its share of clones, certainly has its share of inspired by fragrances. So Bleu de Chanel Eau de Toilette is the actual masterpiece here, but I don't have a bottle of that. This is the only one I have because for me personally, it's the only one I need to own. So this is gonna be the woodiest iteration of that Bleu de Chanel DNA, which is that combination of citruses and some slight aromatics in there. And the I don't know if I want to call it famous, but the noticeable, in my opinion, cedarwood sandalwood combination that is in a lot of Chanel fragrances. I guess the reason I kind of consider this to be the best is because it presents that cedar sandalwood Chanel based combination forward in this fragrance. It's prominent in this one. It's the most noticeable out of all the fragrances I've smelled that I feel have that. In terms of the concentrations, you could say it's kind of a vibe switch. This one is for me the most mature, the most gentlemanly, the most professional, and that's just the one I like the most. That's really all it is. And in terms of impactfulness on the business and the community, there's no denying what Bleu de Chanel is to fragrances in general. Once again, coming from Chanel, this is Bleu de Chanel Parfum. All right, moving on, coming from the house of Giorgio Armani, we have got Acqua Di Gio Profumo. Giorgio Armani Acqua Di Gio Profumo. Again, with this one, similar to Bleu de Chanel, it's really about Acqua Di Gio, the original. But in terms of Acqua Di Gio DNA, this is the one I like the most. I have not talked about this in a while, nor have I sprayed it in a while. So just get my nose on it there. Yeah. Anyway, the Acqua Di Gio fragrance DNA, the original. If you were buying fragrances at that time, you definitely knew what that was to the fragrance business overall. This one in particular, slight aquatic vibe, spices, has that famous incense and patchouli to add more depth to that Acqua Di Gio DNA that I truly appreciate. This is the only Acqua Di Gio I feel I have to own. I didn't feel like I had to own the original. I don't particularly care for many of the other flankers. But again, there is no denying what this fragrance is to the fragrance business and community overall. Many people are fans of Acqua Di Gios in general. The sales certainly speak for themselves. The original is still selling a decent amount of bottles even to this day. It is a shame they discontinued with this one in particular. I'm not a fan of its basically replacement. What is it, the Parfum? I don't really care for that one. In my opinion, the incense or the patchouli, one of the two was basically completely removed. But again, this fragrance certainly has, or really the fragrance line has cemented its place in fragrance history. So it has earned that a masterpiece status, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it. So once again, from Giorgio Armani, this is Acqua Di Gio Profumo. Next up, we got one from Marc-Antoine Barras. This is Ganymede. Marc-Antoine Barras, Ganymede. No doubt that this is probably the latest, I'm just kind of looking at what I got here, the latest fragrance DNA to kind of have that impact on the business and the community overall. I mean, it's a unique fragrance. Definitely maybe took some people some time to warm up to it, but I think it's safe to say that with the inspirational fragrances that have come after it, I'm sure there's plenty of clones of this at this point now, that this fragrance has kind of earned that masterpiece status. And also for me personally, I think it's just a perfect blend. So what is this? It's a unique scent. So it's set a trend in the fragrance world overall. A little bit of a mineralic kind of quality to it, watery, mineralic. I wouldn't, to me it's not really metallic, but some people say metallic. Saffron adding a bit of a leatheriness to it. It's kind of a soft leather but present, kind of this dry woodiness to it. There's ozonic qualities to this. I get kind of a burnt sugary orange flavoring to the scent. It's awesome stuff. I love it. It's one of my favorite fragrances in my collection. It's one of those ones where I said if I was just gonna wear one fragrance for the rest of my life, this one would be considered for that. Considered is the key word here because I can't see myself doing that. And yeah, at this point, I don't think many people can disregard the impact that Ganymede has had on the community overall and the business. So once again, coming from Marc-Antoine Barras, this is Ganymede. All right, and to close it out, we got one from Xerjoff, and this is gonna be Alexandria II. Xerjoff, Alexandria II. So this here is, it's just beautiful to me. This is a fragrance that every time I smell it, it just makes me happy. Shout out to the house of Xerjoff, because many might consider a number of fragrances from that house to be in that masterpiece consideration conversation, if you will. Again, this is all subjective, but we know what a fan favorite this is from the house. They just released a 10-year anniversary version, which cost a pretty penny. Tried to get a sample of it, but it was sold out, but I think it came back in stock, so I might check that out. If anybody's gotten their nose on it, let me know if it's any different. Who knows if it is? I have no idea. But yeah, this is spicy with a little bit of an apple cinnamon kind of smell to it. Some lavender here. There's a couple of varieties of oud in here, giving you a couple of different oudy characteristics. Woody, resinous, kind of green also. Nice sweetness to this fragrance. It is just I just call it a happy scent. That's what I consider it to be. Great for the evenings, great for formal occasions. You could wear this as much as you want to, in my opinion, but I do think it is a little bit more appropriate for those evening occasions. Perfect blend to this scent, in my opinion. And yes, popular scent. I'm sure there's probably plenty of clones for this one out there as well. Don't know if it necessarily inspired a bunch of stuff, but really the scent style, if you will, is not something that's overly unique. I just think this one is done so well with its own kind of identity, if you will, that I think kind of sets it apart from other fragrances that maybe use that apple cinnamon combination. So once again, from Xerjoff, this is Alexandria II. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this video. That was 10 masterpieces that I feel I have in my collection. Let me know down in the comments below, do you agree with some of these? Do you disagree with some of them? Let me know your reasons. Looking forward to seeing what you have to say. And also put down below a fragrance that you think should be considered a masterpiece that I did not mention in this video. So thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well. And I'll see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.